Investor spotlight on Kevin O'Leary. So, as most people know, probably, Kevin O'Leary is a Canadian businessman, investor, and television personality, appearing on shows like The Dragon's Den and Shark Tank, where he is a private equity investor. O'Leary's first claim to fame and millions were earned when he co-founded SoftKey Software Products, a technology company that was eventually acquired by Mattel in 1999. And, he also has in 2008, O'Leary co-founded O'Leary Funds, Inc., a mutual fund company. Now, despite many people's criticism of O'Leary's brash and sometimes rude demeanor on television, often telling entrepreneurs to take their bad business idea behind the barn and shoot it, I have always enjoyed his honesty and discipline to cash flow. O'Leary has even stated, this is a quote from him, "My whole investment strategy is built around cash flow. I have a little Charlie Munger on my shoulder every day when I look at a deal, and he's just saying two words, cash flow, cash flow." Now, the reason I wanted to discuss O'Leary in our investment spotlight segment is because I listened to him on a couple of podcasts recently where he stated that about 25% of his portfolio is tied up in cryptocurrencies. And I thought, how peculiar considering his discipline towards cash flow, as he would say on Shark Tank. So, of course, no one is auditing his portfolio. So, we don't know the actual amount of his holdings in crypto. But he has publicly disclosed this summer that he has 32 positions in alternative coins or altcoins, including Polygon, which is a scaling platform to make Ethereum more efficient to handle more transactions, HBAR, a ledger, which is an alternative to blockchain, as well as, Solana, Serum, Helium. Honestly, a lot of these are over my head, but that is just to name a few that he said that he is invested in, as well as Vancouver-based company WonderFi Technologies, ticker symbol WNDR on the TSX, which offers a technology platform allowing people to invest in digital assets, including crypto and NFTs. And just a note, WonderFi had an operating loss. Again, this is an operating loss of $30 million during the first 9 months of fiscal 2022. But they did just recently make a sizable acquisition. So, we'd have to look going forward, but I'd assume those losses are continuing. Now, the reason for O'Leary's exposure to crypto is that he says, "I believe crypto is going to become the 12th sector of the economy at some point. It's going to take 10 years or whatever, but I look at it and say to myself, it's all software innovation. Bitcoin is not a coin, it's software. And at this point, I really start to think about this as financial services productivity. So in a way, I'm doing a lot of private equity in it." Now, I agree with O'Leary's comments that crypto is essentially software, but he is making big bets on crypto, which is potentially outside of his typical investing philosophy, which revolves around cash flow. In the words of Kevin, he says, "If a business or idea is not making money after 36 months, you have to take it behind the barn and shoot it. It was put on your journey to teach you what not to do." Now, will O'Leary's bets in the crypto world pay off? Possibly. But if some of these investments do not, I think that his dreams will be plagued with Charlie Munger reciting the words cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. So yeah, I'll get your guys' take as well. I just think it's interesting seeing him, almost pivot away from the Kevin O'Leary that I've always known, needing to see bottom line cash flow rather than investing in more of ideas.
I mean, I think the little Munger on his shoulder would have jumped off, at the
Yeah.
thought of, quite a while ago, at the thought of him putting 25% of his portfolio in cryptos. I mean, and I like the thought that, and Bitcoin is, cryptocurrencies are software, and I like Kevin O'Leary, and I find him entertaining.
Me too.
The theme of being a slave to cash flow in investing, that speaks to me. It is, to me, it's interesting to point out that how he established his fortune was through the sale of that family business, the Learning Company. They sold it to Mattel for $4.2 billion. It was done when it was done. It was the height of the dot-com bubble, a time when investors completely forgot about the words cash flow. So he made a great deal at the time, but since then he has preached the importance of investing in cash flowing businesses as like a basic minimum, like you talked about, criteria. So it's, a concrete, tangible tenet of his investment philosophy. But then to talk about having 25% of his portfolio in crypto on the kind of the idea that I think you had said this earlier in the pre for the show, Brennan, that he was doing it because the smartest people in the world, the smartest minds in the world all wanted to work in crypto. So that's kind of a nebulous idea. I mean, it's a great thought, but it kind of eschews cash flow. And it's at the very least, it's curious that he's gone that route, which what would be a quarter of his portfolio. So, and you talked about WonderFi, which we've been watching. WonderFi symbol WNDR on the TSX. It's been listed for around a year. It's backed by O'Leary. It began trading roughly in the $1.70 range, hitting a high of just under $3 in the 2021 tech bubble. But the shares have plummeted to the 44-cent range. Yeah. So WonderFi has posted revenues, 2.9 million in the last quarter, but its operating loss alone in the last quarter was 10.4 million. It's nowhere near positive cash flow. Yes, they have made a couple of acquisitions. One of them is, in the numbers there. I believe one or two of them are not in the numbers yet, so we'll have to look at the numbers going forward, but they've issued a ton of shares to make those acquisitions as well. So with nothing close to positive cash flow in the near term, I wonder if he'll stick to his philosophy, and in 2 years, if this company isn't cash flow positive, he'll shoot this one, shoot the company WonderFi and take it out back. But he did talk about a 10-year time frame on this one, so we'll look at it. I'd like to see a better share structure in this business. But, and then they have commented on like the kind of the crypto winter and the cash flow crunch that was in that industry. They say that they're not exposed to it at all, which is a good thing. But I do wonder if the biggest exchanges will just be the ones who live, and these smaller exchanges, kind of the ones that the Canadian exchange that, WonderFi has purchased, whether they will continue to live on in this segment. So we'll see. I mean, it does have some industries. I would love this business to match his criteria that he talks about in terms of cash flow. It'd be great if this business was cash flow positive right now and we could buy it at a relatively cheap price, but it's nowhere near that. So if we see it come into that range, potentially it would be an opportunity. It isn't there right now, though.
Yeah, exactly. And if I could just say that quote that he said before, where it's like he's doubling down on, idea-based investing. He says, you have the smartest, brightest men and women around the world today saying, screw everything else. I want to work in crypto. And then he says, you can't have this much intellectual capital poured into something and not expect greatness. It just doesn't work that way. I don't know. I don't know.
No, and we're not saying, I don't think what we're saying is this is not going to be a massive segment of the economy, or there's not going to be amazing technology that'll come out of blockchain. It does look like there will be, and there is already that's come out of it. But what companies are you going to invest in? Like just investing in the sector generally, I'm not sure. And like this is one example of a company that he has invested in terms of WonderFi, and we can look at the underlying numbers because it is public. It's not a private entity. And right now, the numbers don't back up the share price. And the reason that the numbers have been poor, and you've seen the share price react accordingly over time, it's done over the last year. It's cratered. So we'll watch to see if these new acquisitions can make it profitable. Then it maybe becomes attractive. But we'll wait to that point.
And waiting to that point, mitigating risk. Sorry, Brett, go on.
Something which I will add. He says, I have 32 positions. Specifically, that word speaks to me. He doesn't actually own the altcoins directly. He may own the underlying companies, which is a massive difference here. Because a lot of those are just, they're small cap companies. And those actually are producing cash flow, some of them. That's the trick here. So if he actually owns the coins, that is very different than if he's owning the companies, because he does own Circle, it says in this, which is if you traded USDC, it's one of the larger stable coins. That is a private company, so I'm not certain on it, but I'm guessing that is producing cash. It is a private. No, I know that it is a private company. I'm not certain that if it produces cash flows or not. I would not be surprised if it does, and that would meet his criteria.
Which is good to note, and it's good. It's good to have you pointing that out, because, like, we don't want him. We'd like to see Kevin not completely depart from his criteria of cash flow. WonderFi at least does have revenues where, like, you know, you can price something. Like many of the altcoins out there, like I think we've been in agreements that they're just going to be gone at some point, right? So, you know, investing in them directly, but if he has positions in underlying companies that are doing business within this segment, they could have some positive cash flow there. So it could be more akin to his criteria that he espouses all the time. And we agree with that criteria primarily.